Hello gainers, I'm Ralphie and welcome to my channel Fitter Philosophy, where I discuss philosophical things from a Stoic perspective based primarily on experience. And experience tells me that the more time we get living on planet Earth, the more we learn about the planet and the more we learn about ourselves. What we learn varies between individuals. Some people learn a lot and other people don't seem to learn so much, and this reflects in quality of life. Some people can enjoy a particularly rich quality of life without seeming to have too many material possessions, whilst others seem to have it all superficially, and yet they're disturbed by life. It's as if they are aware of, in the back of their mind, the uncomfortable situation of thinking you have it when you don't and then being aware of it. It happens. It varies as much as we vary individually from one to another. And one of the ways to experience life, apart from our interactions and engaging with the planet and just experiencing the day-to-day process of living, is to use our senses more than we did yesterday. And this is the last part of a series on using our senses better. And our last is the sense of touch. I was about to say taste there, but I've already covered that. And touch is something that we take very much for granted. Of all the senses we have, it tends to be the most purely functional, coincidental and subconscious. And yet when we look at young children, particularly very young children who are reaching out for the first time, aware of the world around them and wanting to connect with it, they look, they see, they hear, they listen, they smell, they sense, but it's with touch. They're very proactive. If an adult was to watch a child and then mimic it exactly, the behaviour would be considered odd and quite entertaining. But it's the baby's and a young child's sense of touch that is well worth observing for a while, to remind us, particularly as adults, of how we have let our senses go. We just take them for granted. We learned long ago about enough that we needed to get on with life, but then we stopped. We grew up. We stopped reaching out with surprise and curiosity as young children do, because it's part of their survival. But for adults, it's not so vital for survival. But how do you measure survival? Is it existing? Or is it more than that? And a way to reconnect with our senses is to isolate each sense individually and re-examine it. And I recommend that you re-examine your sense of touch. And for starters, get something in Braille. Perhaps a label, a book borrowed from a friend, perhaps something in the library, and just run your fingers over the Braille and see how meaningless it is to you if you have a sense of sight. And yet someone who is visually impaired can take their hands with virtually the same sense of touch, and they can literally, with the tiny little dots in a page, they can read a book, they can learn the words to a song, they can see a physical picture in their mind. And it just shows, demonstrates how little we really use our sense of touch. If you're like me and you're just a little bit kind of curious, but you don't want to commit to trying to read over books of Braille and labels, get yourself down to the beach and gather up some pebbles. This is a brick pebble. Feel it. It's smooth but rough. It's mottled. It's irregular. and it's slightly less heavy than this stone, which has metal ore in it, and it's volcanic stone, compressed. It has more angles to it. It has more topography on it. It has a different feel completely to this stone. And I'm on a beach surrounded by millions upon millions of similar stones, and each and every one of them has a completely different feel. Superficially similar, but that's because we're not using our senses. A smaller stone, soapier, softer. You can feel the ridges in the line from the point when it started off as sedentary. And then a small stone, quartz, smoother, more polished, softer, drier. It's not cold to the feel. And this is another thing about our sensation of our sense of touch. It's more than just about physically feeling. It's registering what our nerve endings experience apart from touch. Is it warmer? Is it colder? Is it a different shape? And we only can tell the shape when we start moving our fingers. Our sense of touch can actually be developed to a very high sense, and you find this with sculptors and some artists, particularly artists who are potters. Another perfect example. How does a potter get the perfect cast cup? Whilst first attempts by enthusiastic beginners and novices at an evening class perhaps, it's just a disaster. Even if the result is successful, the cup is clumsy, too thick, misshapen. And that is because with practice and experience we can fine-tune our sense of touch incredibly well in coordination with the rest of our senses. And this is where I'll conclude in this series, that we should never take our senses in isolation for too long. There is an experience you can now have where you go and you lie in an isolation tank. And it's very interesting, I recommend it. It's a very interesting experience. And you go for as long as you can stand it. Lying in a bath of saline warm water in a dark shell, and what you're experiencing is nothing. You're sensory deprived. And what will happen is at the end of it, when you've really, really had enough, you will get out of that and take a minute just to let the shock of your senses kicking back in stimulate you. It's quite unique. It's to hear sounds after being deprived, to see colours, shapes after being deprived, to touch a towel after you've been deprived of using your sense of touch, to hear noises, echoes and sounds. For a brief moment, everything is greatly heightened, and for that brief moment you have super senses. And it's only when you experience that situation that you know what a difference it makes. I hope you've enjoyed this short series. I'm Ralphie, and I'm going to leave you with this lovely view on the beach. And if you join me again, which I hope you will, and if you click subscribe and click like and ding the bell and all the rest of it, I'll be continuing Fit to Philosophy on the subject of looking after someone with dementia. Yeah, I have an experience of that. And oh, it's getting really quite windy here. But I'm only about 12 inches away. The microphone is literally there, so I'm sure you can still hear me. It's what you get at the coast, you see. You get these sudden sea breezes that happen unexpectedly. It's a risk you take with outside studios, but they also have their benefits. I'm Ralphie, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon, gainers. Bye bye.